Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our weekly live podcast, RAMP, Real Access Motivates Progress. I am your host, Tina Pedersen, and we have an awesome show for you tonight. We are talking to Laurie Mans tonight, and we are talking dementia for life training. Welcome, Laurie, and thank you for joining us on our show tonight.
Thanks, Tina. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I am so excited to learn all about what you do tonight and sharing that with everybody out in our viewing audience. So please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So, as Laurie Mance, I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm a certified dementia care practitioner, trainer, care manager, Montessori professional. I've just got lots of different certifications, but what that means to you is that I have an expertise in dementia care, and I'm a trainer. So, Dementia Training for Life is an organization that is dedicated to the quality of life for people living with dementia. So, we're all about teaching those who provide their care how to provide person-centered care and make it all about the individual so that they can continue to be as independent and my brain just went into a cramp. Independent and enjoy their quality of life as long as possible, because unfortunately there's a lot of misunderstanding and stigma that goes along with dementia that interferes with that quality of life.
That's great. Let's take it back a little bit. How did you get involved in dementia training? Was it a personal thing, or was it, just, a career choice you chose?
Some people refer to it as a God wink. I think about my past as it was preparing me for this. So yes, there is a personal background. Both my grandmothers had different forms of or different diseases that caused dementia. Back then, it was considered hardening of the arteries or senility. With what I know now, my mother's mother most likely had Alzheimer's disease, and my father's mother most definitely had Lewy body disease, which are two different diseases that affect the brains very differently, but result in the loss of cognitive function, so result in dementia. My dad was going on his own course. We never got a diagnosis, but with what I know, I believe my father had Lewy body disease. And it was cancer actually that took him. But so that's background history. I was a pediatric occupational therapist. I knew I wanted to be in medicine, so I was working in peds. So I worked in newborn intensive care units and the Shriners Burn Institute. I knew normal development. And at one point in my professional life, I became disabled myself. I developed fibromyalgia and came out of work for a significant period of time. And once things got better and I was able to work on a part-time basis, it was a headhunter that found my resume that asked me, "Hey, have you ever considered working in assisted living?" And it's like, I don't know what assisted living is. And so, long story short, I did some research. The progression of normal development is the inverse of the progression of dementia. So it's one and the same, just in the opposite direction. And so I was involved in the business end of it. I was involved with working with families and teaching them how assisted living could help support their family members when they could no longer be at home. And I was also a clinical educator as an OT. And what I kept hearing from family members was the doctors and nurses don't even understand this disease. And they're right. They're not properly trained. So long story short, I decided to become a trainer and got all the education I needed. I worked as an executive director. And for the last 4 years, I've been running Dementia Training for Life, educating first responders, all levels of healthcare professionals, from doctors to CNAs, and professionals within the assisted living and nursing home communities, how to provide that person-centered care.
That's fabulous. What a great story of how you became to doing such wonderful things. break it down a little bit for those who may not know. Break it down in layman's terms. What is dementia? Like, like if somebody's never had anything to do with a disease, break it down for us and let us know what it is.
Tina, that's the best question, because even the professionals out there are getting it wrong. So dementia is not a disease. Dementia is the result of a disease, or actually over 120 different diseases that can affect the brain. So when I say to you that I have a runny nose, a scratchy throat, or a cough, what do I have?
A cold.
Or
the flu.
Or
got to go to the doctor and find out more. Oh, yeah, that's
there
true.
You go. Allergies, or unfortunately right now, COVID.
Right.
So you have symptoms. Dementia is symptoms. It's the loss of function. It's what you see that is impairing the person's individuality, independence, their ability to do things like they used to do them. Okay? Alzheimer's is one disease. And that one disease can impair your brain. But as I mentioned, there are over 120 different diseases that can impair your brain. There are diseases that can impair a newborn that causes the same results that would result in dementia. So dementia is the symptoms. It's like a snapshot of someone's loss of function because of a disease. And there are like 14 very more common diseases, but there's also things that look like dementia that are treatable, such as a hearing loss. So unfortunately, we know that about 30% of the people that are diagnosed with, quote, dementia actually only have a hearing loss. And people look at me and say, What do you mean? And it's like, well, if you can't hear it, how are you going to remember it? So what we typically see for the symptoms of dementia, and think of that as the snapshot, people always think it's a memory problem. Well, it's not just memory. And for individuals with Lewy body disease, it might actually be more problems with falls or depth perception, or something that's called REM sleep disorder, where this person acts out their dreams, where this person may actually fall out of bed in the middle of the night and they have no idea how they got there because they were acting out a dream. So different diseases that impair the brain can actually cause the loss of brain tissue with the progression of Alzheimer's and Lewy body, and it definitely impairs your function.
That's amazing, because I never knew it that way. So basically dementia is what you see first to know if you have like the cold or a flu. So like, you know what I mean? So that would be like the runny nose, the watery eyes and stuff. So what are some of the signs and symptoms of dementia that people should be looking for?
Well, one of the things that you should always be asking yourself, am I able to do this at the same level that I used to be able to? So typically, people that are developing different diseases that will result in dementia know there's a problem. Something's happening. I'm not able to process the information. I can't write the way I used to. I can't add up numbers. Falls is a frequent problem with some individuals that have Parkinson's disease and Lewy body disease are very closely related. It's the same protein buildup in the brain, just in different areas of the brain that present either as Parkinson's or as Lewy body. So it's a loss of function. So when you see that somebody isn't able to do the things that they used to be able to do, that's the flag. If you're having issues doing things the way you used to be able to do them and you can't do them that way anymore, then it's time to see the doctor, because it could be a vitamin deficiency. It could be a hearing loss. It could be gastrointestinal, where you're not absorbing the nutrients. So it's a metabolic disorder. So it's really important to get an early diagnosis, because the sooner we can get it diagnosed, truly diagnosed, then the sooner we can actually treat any treatable conditions like a vitamin B12 deficiency, as opposed to, oh, that's just normal aging. Dementia is not normal aging. It is not a normal part of getting older for you to lose brain function. There's something going on. So we know people can live well into their 90s and actually still develop new brain cells.
Wow. Now, do you find a lot of people kind of blow off the symptoms? You know what I mean? Especially someone like if they're tripping and falling, oh, I'm just klutzy, or you know what I mean? I'm forgetting things, or you know what I mean? That's just because I'll tell you, with COVID right now, I forget everything. I could be in the middle of a conversation and completely forget what I'm talking about. Like, that's so not me, but I can literally be in the middle of a conversation and not have any idea what I was just talking about. Like, I completely lose my words or what I was thinking about. Do you find a lot of people blow off the symptoms because some of them could be so minor and minute that they just don't want to face it?
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, we see that primary care physicians and some doctors can be one of the first one to say, particularly when you have somebody that comes in at 85 and they're saying, I can't remember what day of the week it is. It's like, why do you need to remember? You're 85, you're retired. Where do you have to go? And unfortunately, I've heard those stories from families, and that's not normal. And that means that we need to check and see what's going on. Now, everybody knows our world is totally different right now. Thank you, COVID. Between the isolation and depression, we know that is impairing people's brains. We know people that have gotten the disease that are having some prolonged difficulties afterwards. So there's lots going on. So what's normal anymore, we don't know. But most important thing is that if you were always one of those people that balanced your checkbook and you can't do it now, talk to the doctor. If you were a person that remembered people's names all the time and you could go through and talk to people and never have a problem, fine. But if you can't now, talk to your doctor. I've always told a friend when I'm going into a meeting, if I don't introduce you, please introduce yourself, because I can't remember that person's first name. I've never been good with names. ever. So I have to come up with little tricks to do that. But if you are always good at it, then you should just follow through and see if you're not able to do it now, make sure that there's something's not going wrong.
Right. Well, I agree with you, but I mean, like you said, COVID changed the world right now. Like, with the days all running together and being home all the time, I don't know what day it is all the time. Like, somebody will say, what day is it today? Like, if I was having a stroke and I went to the hospital, they would think I was 10 times worse than it, because they'll say, who's the president? I don't remember. Or, what day of the week it is. Let me think about it. You know what I mean? Like, I was always worried, you know what I mean? With COVID going on, will they actually be able to diagnose me? Because I don't know what day of the week it is.
I hear you, girl, and I turned my phone because it's our routines are totally messed up. I don't get to go to my daily meetings that I normally would go to, and that would keep me on track. I mean, yeah. So the world is totally different. Thank you, COVID. But I still should be able to write a letter like I used to, or write a paper, or have a conversation, or do the things that I normally would do. And if I can't, then we need to check and find out what's going on. But it's those people that just say, oh, don't worry, you're fine. Yeah. That's when it's a concern.
Yeah. Now, at this stage, I know it's always good, especially when you're going to a new appointment or you have new symptoms, to take somebody with you. You know what I mean? To take somebody to speak for you and to hear the things that you don't want to hear. Because I know when I was told I had cancer a bunch of times, I just didn't want to hear it. So I just kind of blocked it out and like, that wasn't really what was going on. You know what I mean? You just kind of do that. But should you go to your primary care, or if you really think that they're blowing you off, what doctor should you go to next, or should you find another primary care to be persistent?
Okay, so the process of getting diagnosed is, first of all, you start with your primary care doctor, because you have to have a good, thorough evaluation, have a thorough physical that includes blood work. Because if you don't have that, then you don't know if it's just a vitamin deficiency. So you definitely have to start with your primary care doctor. But we're used to people using what's called the mini mental test. And we now know that the mini mental test is not sensitive enough to identify if a person's having cognitive issues until they're already having problems. So we do need to move on to a specialist. So just like if you were having breathing problems, you would get transferred over and referred to a pulmonologist. So you should be referred to a specialist. And we are so lucky here in Rhode Island. We've got multiple centers that are involved in research and direct care for people with various different diseases that cause dementia. We've got here we go. I got a brain freeze. Rhode Island Hospital. Thank you, COVID. No, Rhode Island Hospital. We also have Butler Hospital. We've got research that's happening at URI. We have Dr. Stukides and his group, and we've got a ton of people that can do the evaluation. But it's really, really important to share what you're seeing, and that whole idea about bringing a person with you. Crucial. It's crucial to have another person with you. But what are they telling you when you go to the doctors? Well, you can't bring somebody with you because of social distancing. So it's the people that know these diseases require you to have another person with you. It's the ones that say, no, you can't bring anybody in with you, that you need to turn around and leave and get a new referral for sure.
Yeah, the other thing that you can do too is you may not be able to bring them in the room with you, but they can be on the phone with you. So when the doctor comes in the room, they can be on the phone with you. So please know, everybody, and that's whatever condition you have. If you have to be in the room by yourself and you want somebody else listening in, you can call that person on the phone and the doctor cannot refuse that. You can have somebody that you personally choose on the phone with you so they can hear and listen to everything that the doctor is saying. So please know that is an important piece. So once you get diagnosed and you go through it, I want to switch gears just a tad, because as hard as it is for the person to go through and be diagnosed with dementia, it's so crucial on the family watching somebody deteriorate and go through this whole part. On the is there a lot of support for the caregiver? Because I know caregivers are so burnt out, especially right now with COVID and everything out. They are so extremely burnt out. But is there support for the dementia caregiver as well?
Absolutely. And there's a variety of different places. One of the other things that I do is I also run the Rhode Island Memory Cafes, which is a nonprofit organization that allows for social gatherings for people who are living with dementia and their care partners to come together, socialize, have fun, realize that you still can do things. You might just have to do them a little bit differently. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we had to stop meeting in person. So we're now meeting twice a week virtually through Zoom meetings. And we're having a ball. We've been meeting since the beginning and meeting twice a week. And we do everything from playing different games and taking tours and doing virtual tours of different places, as well as making things, arts and crafts, giving people projects. So the one thing I want people to recognize is that when you're diagnosed with a condition that can lead to, and really dementia is no longer an accepted term even within the medical community. It's now known as mild cognitive impairment when it's not impairing your day-to-day function, or major cognitive impairment when it is impairing your function, or what we know as dementia. So when you go and meet with the doctor, if they do say that you have a major cognitive impairment, then it is impairing your day-to-day life. But that doesn't mean that your life has ended. We know people that have lived with different forms of dementia. And we use that term because that's what people are used to, for 14 years after diagnosis. So it's not like you get a diagnosis and your life is going to end tomorrow. So one of the things that I often say is that dementia is an acquired disability. Now, Tina, you can vouch for this more than anything. When you go through a life-changing event that you then have to learn how to do things differently and adapt your environment and adapt the way you do things, you still can do them. You just have to do them a little bit differently. Well, the same is true for people that are living with dementia. And a lot has to do with the caregiver and the expectations that we put on our loved ones. Because if we expect people to do things the way they've always done them and they're having trouble, then we're both going to get frustrated. Whereas we understand that, okay, now I need a checklist when I'm going through my morning routine to make sure that I do everything that I need to do. If the checklist is there and I can go through, I'm still independent. But you have to be able to give people the cues and the support, not only emotional support, but also the physical support of adapting the environment and making sure that they're as independent as they possibly can. Which the hardest thing to do is the fact that when one person's diagnosed with dementia, it's only one. Everybody's different. I don't care. You can have 10 people with Alzheimer's in the same room, and they all present similarly, but very differently, because the way it's impairing their brain and their function and them as a person is totally different than the next. So it's
so
it's not
true
easy.
that, it's so true that you say that, because going from being an able-bodied walker for most of my life up to 7 years ago, when I had to learn how to navigate the world differently, to me, as devastating as it was, nothing really changed for me other than the fact that I had to learn to navigate from a wheelchair in a sitting position. It was everybody around me who just assumed that I was going to roll in a ball and do nothing or wasn't able to do anything that affected me. You know what I mean? So as much as you want to be independent or you need a little bit more help, you still got to give them the option. You still have to give them a chance and realize they're still a person and they're still in there and they still need to be treated as human and still given, like, I want people to talk to me the same way that they did before I was in a wheelchair. Joke with me, laugh with me. Like, I make more disabled jokes than anybody else I know because I live it. I can do that. You know what I mean? Like when somebody says, "Oh, I got to stretch my legs," I'm like, "Yeah, it must be nice," you know, because it doesn't do me any good. You know, or do you need to get to a rest stop to stretch your legs? Yeah, that'd be great. I could do it right here because I don't feel them anyway. You know what I mean? But you got to give people the humanity that they're still there, that they're still able to, and give them credit for it. Now, if people wanted to join these memory cafes with you, how can they do that? How can they sign up to be part of your memory cafe?
There's lots of different ways. First of all, you can go to my professional website, which is www.dementiatraining4life.com. And on the website under events, I have listings of trainings, but I also have the memory cafes. So you can go to that website and there we go. So under calendar of events, if we go click and down the bottom, Rhode Island Memory Cafes, nonprofit, click on there. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a spot it's explaining what it's all about. And when it says, where it says click here to RSVP, a little bit up, the first purple, no,
up a little bit.
First, there you go, there it is. The purple bar right there. You just click on that and it will send me an email. Or you can send me an email at Laurie, or not at, but Laurie at dementiatrainingforlife.com. And so what you're seeing there are the locations that we used to be holding our in-place meetings. So there were 10 different locations around the state that we would meet. And there's also another spot there where it says mail for information. And we also had co-sponsors. So we had organizations in the community that were helping us with those, providing snacks and or location. And unfortunately, because of COVID right now, that's all secondary now. So everything's happening virtually. It's in your own home. And every Monday and Thursday at 1:00, we get together. And we've had people from around the country join us. We've had people from Chicago and Arizona, Florida. But we have a very steady small group that attends every day, each time.
Oh, that's amazing. Now that we have your website up, though, give us some other key points while we're on your website that we should be checking out. I mean, I'm sure the whole website is very informative, but give us some key areas that we should make sure we should be checking out on your website. Walk us through that.
Okay, so yeah, it's definitely a learning opportunity on my website. I've never been without words, as you know, Tina. So you can go on there and if you scroll down a little bit on the home page, you'll see what really is our mission. And it's all about providing and improving the lives of individuals living with dementia by training the people who care for them. And as I mentioned, we work with first responders and all levels of healthcare professionals. I've had doctors in my trainings, and I've had CNAs, but we have to make sure, we've got to make our hospitals dementia friendly or dementia capable. They're not. They don't understand this. So there's lots of information there. Then we get into some statistics, which talks about, and I need to update them because we have some new numbers from the Alzheimer's Association. But you can certainly go through and take a look. I definitely need to update some numbers in there. And then back up at the top, if you go to program overview, click on the program overview. That's who should attend. That tells you about what are the benefits of training. So one of the things that I say particularly to the professionals, when I keep hearing, but we don't have time to train. Please, if you don't know how to do something in the most efficient, effective way, it's going to take you longer to do it. And for instance, I recently was working one-on-one with a woman in her home that is definitely in the long stages of dementia, more in the end stages. But I found out that this lady was capable of doing so much more than her family and her caregivers was allowing her to do, just by reading her body language, because you can really figure out what somebody is trying to say or what somebody's doing if you give them the opportunity. So it really has to be individualized. For instance, and I want to keep it personal, but I don't want to get too personal. This woman was having some issues with continence. Well, the family members and the people they were hiring to care for her just decided that she needed to wear Depends, and she was no longer capable of using the bathroom on her own. That wasn't true. I was able to return this woman to being continent just by teaching them how to use a timing schedule, to just ask her, do you need to use the restroom? And she was able to respond yes. She just couldn't initiate the process. So she became continent again just because of the way that we set it up. So there's lots that we can do depending on what the individual's needs might be. And then there's other stuff on the website. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you that, you know what I mean? You have to give the person, like I said, you got to humanize the person. I mean, they're still human. They're still in there. They may not be able to react or speak the way you want them to. Like, I obviously react differently because I'm doing it from a sitting position than I was from a walking position. But you got to give somebody the opportunity, and you have to learn. So training, education is so important. As they say, nothing for us without us. You can't tell me what I need or what you can do for me without asking me or without asking the person. It's
Absolutely.
so important. And the same thing with the caregiver. If the caregiver isn't taking time to take care of themselves as well, they can't be any good to the person that they're caring for. Because if you get overtired and you get burnt out and you get frustrated, well, who you think you're going to take that out on? The person you're caring for. So you need to take care of you as much as you take care of them. Could you give us a little bit more? I know you explain that way more than I do.
Sure. So, for instance, if you have somebody that takes a little bit longer to put on their shoes and socks, well, allow them to put on their shoes and socks. So, because as soon as you start to take that away from them, then they give up and they actually lose that skill. So leave those shoes and socks with them. You walk away and do what you need to do, and then come back. And that person still feels independent because they're able to do the task, and you were able to do what you needed to do. But the whole process of taking care of the caregiver, there's actually a diagnosable condition called caregiver syndrome. When somebody becomes so exhausted and that their health is impaired. And I've seen people die from being a caregiver before the person that they were providing the care for. So it's crucial that you get the right support, you get the education, and you get the systems into place in order to allow the individual to be as independent as possible. Tina, as you know, we all need a purpose. We need a reason to get out of bed and to do the things that we love to do. Well, if somebody's taking that away from you, like, say you've got somebody that loved to cook, well, they may not be safe to be in the kitchen alone, but they certainly can help, as opposed to just taking it away from them and telling them to go sit in the chair and watch TV and I'll bring you your food. Engage them. Keep them engaged. And again, as I said, as soon as you take a skill away from someone, they will lose it. Another big piece of it, too, is that I truly do believe that people that are diagnosed with different diseases that cause dementia are grossly under identified for depression. Now, I know that you went through a really rough time with COVID, and it was depressing that you weren't able to do the things that you wanted to do. I mean, it's frustrating. It's all get out. And that in itself, just the depression, can impair someone's ability to be independent. So if we treat that depression, but we also give them purpose and allow them to do as much as they possibly can, then we can maintain their function much, much longer.
That is so true. And like I said, I mean, I am still quarantined for the most part because I'm a COVID long hauler. So, but I get out on the back porch and I tell people, stop asking me what I need. You want to come over and do my laundry? Be my guest. You want to come over and bring me a meal? Don't ask me, because 90% of the time I don't know what I need anymore. The days all run together. I don't know what I need anymore. But I'm not going to tell anybody, no, you can't do my laundry. Please let me do it. Or you can't clean my house. Please let me do it. I mean, I'm not going to say that, But I remember when I first ended up in the wheelchair, so many people wanted to do everything. I mean, I said, look, if I need your help, I will ask for it. If not, you will get a thrown at you. Let me ask for it. But I also know my limits. I won't take a shower in the house when I'm alone. I will make sure somebody's at least in that screaming distance, that if I slip or I fall or whatever, I don't do it alone. And it's the same thing for dementia, but you got to be a little bit more on it when it's dementia because of their thinking process. So, but watch them. Watch for signs that they struggle, or watch for signs that they need your help. Don't just do it for them, because that is the worst thing you could do for a person with a disability, is just do it for them. Unless you want to come and clean my house, I will let you do that. Absolutely.
There you go. And one of the things that we see that can become impaired for different forms of dementia is language. The ability to express your thoughts and feelings and understand thoughts and feelings from others. So for those individuals that are having a difficulty expressing, and there's a particular condition called frontotemporal dementia, with the temporal part of the region of the brain that is impaired, and that's the speech center. So for those individuals that start to lose their language, that can be really difficult and very frustrating too, because they're trying to tell you what it is that they need, but maybe they can't come up with the right words, or they're so embarrassed they don't even want to try. So
Right.
again, making sure that we understand what are their limitations and how can we help. But adaptive equipment and different things that different ways to set up the environment can make all the difference in the world. And as you know, your adaptive environment makes you so much more independent.
Yeah. Oh, it's so frustrating because I remember when I had my stroke in 2019 and I ended up with aphasia. And anybody who knows me for 5 seconds knows I have the gift of gab. I could talk to a rock for 24
Mm-hmm.
hours straight and not get bored. When I ended up with
Mm-hmm.
aphasia and I knew what I wanted to say, I just could not say it. It's so frustrating that I needed my family to be patient and just
Mm-hmm.
let me write it down or try to get it out. But even when you're mad, if you didn't have a disability and you get mad, you get so mad or frustrated, you can't come up with the words at all.
Right.
And that's just a
Right.
normal everyday person. It's frustrating, but you need to have patience and you need to have understanding. If you need to, walk away. I would tell my family, walk away, come back in 5 minutes, I might figure it out. But walk away
Mm-hmm.
because all it's doing
Mm-hmm.
is frustrating you and me.
Yes, absolutely. And also understanding it's not just expressing your needs, but also understanding. So if you're trying to explain something to someone and they're not comprehending what it is that you're saying, it's not that they're not listening. It's not that they're not trying. It's just that for them, their brain is not able to process the information. So you may
Right.
have to use more gestures, or you may have to use some props. You may have to use signs. There's been people that I've consulted to where I said, okay, put a picture of the toilet on the bathroom, not the word bathroom, but the picture, and then they know what it is. So again,
Right.
making sure that you're adapting the environment to meet the needs of the individuals.
Yeah, that it's funny you say that because my speech therapist with aphasia, we had a
Mm-hmm.
viewing chart where I could
Mm-hmm.
point to whether I wanted to go to bed or if I had to go to the bathroom when I was like in the first stages and couldn't talk. I could actually point to the pictures so people knew what I was trying to say or what I was trying to talk about instead of writing the same
Mm-hmm.
thing over and over again. So there are ways around it. You just need to find out what works for everybody. But the biggest thing, walk away, come back and regroup in 5 minutes when you're all calmer and have patience. And like I said, I can't stress it enough. Treat the person as a human. They didn't lose who they are. They lost some of the functions and had to navigate differently. Now that we're kind of
Absolutely.
nearing the end of the hour, I want you to tell everybody the most important thing that you think everybody should know about dementia.
Oh, golly. The most important thing. I think you just said it. Each person is their own. Everybody's different. And if you don't have the skills, you can learn them for the caregiver as well as the individual with dementia. People with dementia can learn. They don't lose all sense of ability until the very, very ends of the disease process. And for some people, that can be years into it. Unfortunately, there are also conditions that can move very rapidly and it can be in very short periods of time. So understanding what disease process your loved one is dealing with is probably the most crucial thing that you need for yourself as a caregiver to be able to adapt and meet the needs of the individual living with dementia. That's know the disease, know what you're dealing with. And if your doctor is saying to you, well, it doesn't matter, then you need a new doctor.
Right.
Let me share an experience that I had with my dad, which really shocked me. I had noticed some issues going on with my dad. He had had multiple falls in 1 year, and he was having some problems with language. And so he went to his primary care doctor, and they said, yeah, there's something going on. I want you to go see a neurologist. And it's like, okay, well, the neurologist that they have is kind of hard to get into, but they have a new associate. So let's have you go see that new associate, and you'll get in real quick. I said, great, awesome. So we go see this new doctor, and first thing, I let him know what it is that I do, and the doctor says, well, I don't know why you're here, because I don't use family when making a diagnosis. And it's like, okay, we're in the wrong place. And well, long story short, he wasn't a neurologist. He was an osteopath that specialized in headaches, and he didn't even administer the test properly. So we ended up in the wrong place, and they did not understand. And he literally turned to me with my father sitting next to me and said, he's not demented, go home. It's like, I knew he wasn't. I knew he was having falls. I knew he was having problems with language. He was having some other issues that were going on. And we needed to find out why. And this person wasn't interested in finding out why he wasn't able to do the things he needed to do. So most importantly, if you don't feel like you're being heard, find a new doctor.
Utilize the specialist. 100%. Yeah, I 100% agree with that, because I was in a room with 25 people in a wheelchair that were all paralyzed. Every single one of us was 100% completely different. We had feeling in different places. We were able to do different things. We were able to function differently. It was amazing. When I was first paralyzed and woke up from the spinal stroke, I was sent home in 3 days saying, oh, it will come back. It's just a reaction to the medication. Well, here it is 7 years later, and it hasn't come back, but it was just their way of kind of, it's not our fault. You know what I mean? Which it never was, because if I was out walking around that day, that aneurysm could have burst in my head and I'd not be here at all. Thank God I was on the operating table and it settled in my spine. I only lost the use of my legs. My mouth still works. I'm good. As long as I can talk, I'm good. But it's so true that everybody is different. You know, like somebody had said to me, oh, my father was paralyzed, but he didn't have that, or he couldn't do that. Well, like I said, I was in a room with 25 people. One person had feeling just under the left knee. One had feeling just behind the right calf. No rhyme or reason to it. Some people could transfer in and out of their chair. Like I can transfer in and out of my chair with a little bit of struggle, but I can do it. Some people couldn't even get off the floor. You know what I mean? To transfer. Everybody is different, and you need to take everybody, but doesn't mean anybody is more or less of that disease or that disability than anybody else. It's so important. If you're not being heard, like when that first doctor sent me home, I'm like, okay, I went through 3 neurologists before I found one that actually worked with me. You know what I mean? And got me the support and the stuff that I needed to function. Right. And you bring up a big point, is that there's a lot of social media support groups out there. And a lot of people which we need the support. We need to be able to vent, especially when we're feeling like we're not doing our best job. But there's nothing that bothers me more than somebody say, hey, my loved one is doing this. What medicine are you using to treat that? It's like, no, you need to talk to your doctors, because even though you may have Alzheimer's disease, you could also have diabetes. You could also have heart disease. You could also have other pre-existing conditions that you need to be treated differently than the person that's on the other side of that support screen. So it's recognizing that everybody is different, and medication right now, unfortunately, with these diseases, do not cure the diseases. They allow the brain to be a little more efficient and effective, but they don't slow down the diseases. And we have no cures, but we do have treatments. And our treatments are all based on our environment and the support that we provide and understanding the person and meeting their needs. So I think that's the most important thing. Now, as we're going through this process, I'm thinking about this. Nobody's ever asked me that question. So the most important thing is just really
recognizing that everybody is different, and
Yeah.
we can learn to make that person feel more independent and purposeful and enjoy life. And I mean, we laugh every single memory cafe that we do. We
Yeah.
make sure that we laugh, and we might learn something new, but we'll have some fun too. And that's the most important thing is if you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
So the
And
same
I
is
mean,
with your
it's so,
brain.
yeah, it's so important too that people need to understand, if you don't mesh with a doctor or you don't mesh with a support group, just say thank you and move on. Find what works for you. How many times have people gone to therapists and they just didn't mesh with their therapist? I mean, it's like a couple. How many relationships do you have to be in to find the one that works for you? It's the same thing with your doctors and your therapists and your support groups. If one is too negative, move on to another one. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to say a whole bunch of things. Just move on. Just like
Mhm.
Facebook, if you don't like what you see, scroll past. I'm a big one of that. Scroll past. Don't like it. You don't have to
Mhm.
say anything about it. Scroll past and move on. But you're not a bad person, or you're not attention seeking if you go to a different doctor, if you go to a different support group. Find what works for you and your loved one. That is what matters, because nobody else is going to live your life but you. So you need to make the most of it while you're here, and you need to move on when you need to move on. Anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, the other thing that I would say is that not only is it important to get an early and accurate diagnosis, but to circle the wagons is what I say, is bring in your support group. Make sure that your loved ones are involved, your friends, the people that are your best supports, and have those conversations about what is important in your future. How do you want to be cared for? And making sure that you take all the legal steps of power of attorney and healthcare proxies and all of the legal stuff too. But having those conversations so people know, I want to stay at home. I don't want to go to a nursing home. I want to stay
Yep.
home as long as I possibly can. But I don't want to stay there if it's going to cause an impairment for my loved ones that are taking care of me. So that's my biggest piece, is to have the conversations early, get an early and accurate diagnosis, and make your wishes known.
And besides that, have those conversations now, before you're
Yes.
diagnosed, before you have, like, I've had the conversation with my family when I went through cancer, when I went through, other things. I want my family. I've had that conversation with my daughter and my son, who are only in their 20s. What are your wishes? What do you want? What do you, because you never know when your life is going to take a tailspin. And I want to know what my kids are thinking. I want them to know what I'm thinking. Have that
Mm-hmm.
open conversation. You don't have to go run out and have your will done. But if people that you love and is in your support group, if something does happen, you've had these conversations. They're not blindsided. Now, oh my God, she's got dementia. She doesn't remember anything. Now what do I do? Well, hey, I had that conversation 10 years ago. This is what she said. Have those
Mm-hmm.
conversations often, frequently, updated. If you change your mind, update it. It's so important. And the other thing that I say is, as well as is have your red bag with you. Everybody become a
Mm-hmm.
red bag carrier, because it keeps all of your wishes on you at all times, and it's non-tech based. It's called the Red Bag Initiative. It's non-computer based, because I don't know how many people say to me, oh, I have it on my phone. Well, I don't know an EMT alive that's going to say, please don't die right now. Give me the passcode so I can get your medical history. It just doesn't happen. My son is a red bag carrier at 20, just so he could be an organ donor if, God forbid, something ever happened to him and I don't need to make that call. Or, if
Right.
you want somebody called, you don't. Be a red bag carrier. Go to www.rampasinclusion.com and grab your red bag today for you and your loved one. I know Laurie uses it for her clients. It's just such an important piece to have with you, to have it when you're sane and all of your faculties to you. It's updated and on you at all times. But Laurie, this was such a great conversation with you today. give us your last thoughts of what you want the world to know and how they can contact you.
Well, Tina, people can reach me through my website, which is dementia training, the number 4, life.com. And live every day till its fullest, because we don't know what tomorrow will bring. If 2020 and now 2021 haven't taught us anything, we don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow. So let's live every day to its fullest and love the people around you and let them know frequently just how important they are.
Thank you so much, Laurie. It was such a pleasure talking to you, and I have so much new information that I learned tonight. So thank you so much for being my guest tonight, and I look forward to working with you moving forward.
Absolutely, Tina. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
And I would like everybody to know to join us next week, next Wednesday at 7 p.m. live. We will be talking everything AARP. So if you're getting up there and you're getting ready to be an AARP member, or if you have a family member that's going to be an AARP member, make sure you join us next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We look forward to having you every week. We have the resources. We have the information. Stay updated and informed. Have a great week, everybody. See you later.